Welcome back, everyone, to Blockmates Orange. We've got Stan and Toby from Colend. They are currently building on core. Lending and borrowing platform seems pretty straightforward. But before we get into something that isn't as straightforward as it might seem, just a quick intro from Stan first and then Toby afterwards. Tell us about what you do at Colend, and yeah, just a brief intro would be great. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you for hosting us. So my name is Stan, and I'm in charge of the marketing and partnership activities, and also all the DeFi strategies. And Toby?
Hi everyone, thanks for hosting us today. So I'm more on the technical side, so more like smart contracts, all the little techie stuff that are behind the lending and borrowing protocol is more like handled by me.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool, Toby, that you did come along, because I've got some questions around not getting too into the technical side of it, but it's going to be really interesting to kind of interrogate, the challenges between, what's EVM and what's Bitcoin and how you guys are navigating that. But we'll get onto that later on. Just to kick things off, Stan, quickly, how did you find yourself in the crypto space, and more importantly with Colend?
Oh, in fact, I began like 4 or 5 years ago, like any people, just trading cryptos, focused on Bitcoin. And after that, I explored all the DeFi ecosystem, and then we had some discussion with Toby about what was building on core, and all the BTC-Fi, what we call the DeFi built on top of Bitcoin, and then Toby found the good words and also he did the investigation to pick up this chain. And maybe Toby, you can explain more about the reason why we built on core network.
Sure. So first, like my introduction as well on blockchain. So it's been 6-7 years that I joined this space. It was mostly linked to, let's say, the technical side of it. So I had like basically two thoughts, like when I wanted to, let's say, re-strategize my position in the previous company I was working in. So it was either AI or blockchain. So I decided to go with blockchain because I thought it was a really interesting technology from a technical point. So I was more into initially EVM, smart contracts, Solidity, and let's say altcoins. But then the more I matured, the more I went into the Bitcoin, let's say, environments. And then I really wanted to build something that can leverage as well the Bitcoin at core. And this is where we discussed with Stan and we met as well. And after doing some intensive research into which potential layer we could utilize to deploy some solution for the community, we decided to go with Core Network because we believe that it was a well-positioned sidechain to build on top of Bitcoin.
Yeah, so there's obviously a lot to unpack in terms of, even though it was a brief introduction, there's obviously a lot there to talk about. And I don't know if you guys both share the same perspective around this, but let's start with you, Toby. What is your definition in as simple terms as possible in terms of what Bitcoin DeFi is? What does that look like for you?
Sure. For me, it's simple. I mean, for a lot of Bitcoin, let's say Maxi, which are starter Bitcoin as well, it's like you have your Bitcoin, but you cannot necessarily generate, let's say, utility beside holding it or spending it. So it's a bit limited in that aspect compared to, for example, traditional finance, where you can lend it, borrow it, and let's say make it more a utility instead of just a medium of exchange or a solution for saving. So it can play multiple role in the real world. So this is what we're trying to achieve as well with Colend, is for people to potentially get more of what they already have by still being secure on a secured layer.
Stan, do you want to add anything to that, or are your thoughts pretty much
I'm
in
aligned
sync
with
with
Toby.
Toby?
Yes, I'm aligned with him. But also, like maybe it was 3 years ago, there was something I would say close, like an EVM built on top of Bitcoin, which was Rootstock. It didn't find a great success. However, Core has like 1 year now, and they're doing things pretty well, and it's an interesting ecosystem because it's some kind of hybrid. And well, I was seduced by this.
Okay. So obviously there's you guys have chosen a term as sidechain. So I really would love to get your thoughts around, like, what do you perceive? I think it's more of a technical question, so I'll let you lead on this one, Toby. It's like, what is the kind of like the fundamental difference between calling Bitcoin meets EVM as an L2 versus a sidechain? I mean, what is the difference in the context of this dynamic that's going on at the moment?
Right. I think there's a lot of people like sidechain was more, let's say, what people were building maybe back, if I can call so, in the days, and now the hype is more into layer twos, especially thanks to layer twos on Ethereum. But I think the layer
Yeah.
two on Ethereum are definitely not the same as the potential layer two on Bitcoin. And this is mainly because of the difference in the Turing language, which is not as big in the Bitcoin layer compared to the Ethereum layer. Like with Bitcoin mini script, there's only small amount of calculation that can be done. So I think a lot of current projects which are, let's say, positioning themselves as layer two are not really what we would call layer two on the ETH network, for example, because there's no really a possibility to verify the data payload that has been sent back to Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain itself as the Bitcoin core network. So I believe, like most of them are sidechains, but are not calling themselves sidechains. So I think it's more into, let's say, marketing aspect nowadays. But for me, most of them are sidechains and not what we could call a layer two, because there is no real, let's say, possibility for a Bitcoin node to verify, let's say, a specific payload that has been sent to the Bitcoin network, because there is no, let's say, this specific language that enables it.
Are you familiar with the spider chain and what that does from a potential of looking or perceiving that as being an L2?
No, I didn't have time to look into that, but I'll do it
Yeah.
after the call.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious because I know that you're 100% correct. There's a lot of the sentiment that, perhaps, the marketing exercise is to obviously present something as an L2, but in fact it is a side chain. And I'm just curious whether there is, in your knowledge, any kind of technology out there at the moment that does actually facilitate, settling on the Bitcoin network from an EVM crossover to Bitcoin. Do you know if there is anything like that, or is it just purely an exercise in a side chain that does that on behalf of this kind of settlement layer?
Not that I'm aware of. And
Okay.
I don't think it's a possibility right now, unless there are new, let's say, proposals that are getting added to the Bitcoin core network, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon. After we can look into Lightning Network, for example, or other type of network which are more into multi SIG wallets. So it's more into the asset itself, but not the data payload itself that can be verified. So there's a big difference into that as well. Because for us, we really wanted to build somewhere where we have this full security from a EVM perspective. So all the smart contracts that we are deploying, we want to make sure that they're quite secure in a secure environment. And this is why we decided to go with Core as well, knowing that they have such a strong engine, which is a fork of ETH initially. So it has been quite battle tested with time. So that's why we decided to go with this network, knowing the connection that they have already with all the hashing power that has been delegated, and now as well the Bitcoin itself that are staked on the Bitcoin layer and can be dedicated. Let's say this voting power can be dedicated to validator on the core network. So it's really helping to create a link between both networks.
So do you think that the future is this Bitcoin DeFi, or do you think it's a combination of sort of like EVM and Bitcoin DeFi and Bitcoin Maxi? How do you guys perceive potentially what the future looks like? I know that this is such a big question, but it would be really interesting to kind of get an insight in terms of what you...
There are different trade-off in different layers.
Yeah.
I think we just need to accept the trade-off. I'm not in favor of changing, let's say, the Bitcoin layer too much, because I think it has a purpose. It's working fine. Let's not I wouldn't, like, when I look at the roadmap of Ethereum, like, I'm not feeling really confident about it, just because it's like so big and changing every 6 months. So I'd rather have like a robust, let's say, stable structure which we can build on top of it, and then it's going to be the user which can decide which kind of trade-off is willing to accept. And like, history is going to tell us well which sidechains, let's say, or L2 is more secure, or has been battle tested the most, or has a better history into managing different incidents, for example. So I think there's just a different trade-off that users need to accept.
Great. Stan, do you want to chime in? I saw that you turned your mic off, so go
Well,
for it.
it's not so easy to reply to your question, because what we see is that some chains are using the optimistic IP, others would use a blast fork. This kind of thing that's very new. Even the ZK, I didn't see a great success on that. I agree with Toby when you say that Bitcoin is built for a purpose. We don't have to change it. Therefore, to find out something hybrid with a secure, safe environment makes sense. So the purpose of core network for me seemed the easiest one. And well, I think that in the future, from what I see from Ethereum, they are deploying different layers to reduce the cost, and it won't stop. It's like not a death spiral, but something complicated to manage, because there is also this ultrasound money, which expect to become deflationary. I think that would be very complicated. Therefore, I think that people will migrate to Bitcoin layers, Bitcoin sidechains, and I have the feeling that the way that Bitcoiners begin to think about BTC-Fi instead of keeping their assets on their wallet, because this is what Core is doing pretty well. People are storing their Bitcoin on their wallet, but they get an extra yield because they stake it, and finally, progressively, they adopt this kind of new ecosystem. So I think there is something very interesting now happening, and the ETF for sure is pushing it favorably.
Yeah, I mean, it's I completely agree with you. It's kind of like there's this kind of like missed opportunity that's been in play for so long. It's kind of like you have this really valuable asset, but the the value of the asset, from a Bitcoin maxi perspective, can be argued that, it's my savings account. I don't need to do anything beyond the fact that I'm kind of saving my money. Which I don't entirely agree with. I think there's got to be capital efficiency beyond just a savings account, and collateralizing the value of your Bitcoin, provided obviously the risk profile is acceptable, is the way to go. And I suppose this is a great opportunity for us to just jump into what you guys are doing. I mean, we've obviously spoken in general about what's happening in the space, and let's just get into the specifics of what you guys are doing. I think on the surface of it, it's kind of like a lending and borrowing platform that I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, is enhancing the value of your Bitcoin through this process. Do you want to just talk me through, in as complex or in as simple terms as you want, what exactly are you guys planning to achieve with Colend?
Maybe I can begin, if you don't mind. So initially, Colend was an NFT project. So we plan everything just to provide a solution which fit with the community expectation. And from what we saw is that a lending and borrowing protocol was not built on core network. So we began to brainstorm together, and the idea was to not do another decentralized bank on, I would say, an EVM layer. We decided to mix different features from successful projects such as Aave, Amperforce, Curve, and to create something completely unique and exclusive. And this is what we want to do. So the final target is to create a platform with an on-chain governance, with a bribe system, and new features, new utilities to the token. So this is the main topic, what we want to do. And Toby, you can provide more details, maybe.
No, I mean, it's you summarized it quite well. We definitely try to bring, let's say, multiple successful solutions together into one. We believe that the lending and borrowing is one of the most secure way to generate, let's say, yields on top of an assets in a safe way, thanks to, let's say, the battle-tested solution that have been deployed since a few years on other EVM chain. So that's one of the reasons we decided to go with this initial protocol, which is the lending and borrowing side.
So what is the kind of like the functional aspect, like from a user experience, right? So if I want to, I've got several Bitcoin in a wallet, and I realize that there is obviously a process that I can undergo pretty much the same as what we've seen on Ethereum. A great example was obviously the Curve ecosystem that you presented. What does the user experience look like, and what are the risks involved in that process? Whoever wants to jump in first.
Sure, I can start maybe. I mean, the risk is quite low, if I can say so, because the protocol has been decided. I mean, as you know, you deposit certain assets that you can then, based on the value of your deposit, you can then borrow a certain amount of the other asset. Of course, there are some protections. So, for example, if you deposit, let's say, 100 USD worth of USDT, you can only borrow, for example, up to $80 worth of core BTC. So there's a gap of like how much you can borrow compared to how much you deposit, to make sure that you're always going to borrow less compared to what you deposit. And this gap is made as well for us, for the protocol, to be able to liquidate a position if a user is not paying back his debt. The protocol can automatically close the debt and pay back the creditors to make sure that everyone is not losing their money. So there are quite strong mechanisms in place to ensure that if you are depositing your assets to get yield on top of it without borrowing, people, if they're borrowing a lot but they're not paying back, the protocol will automatically liquidate the position to ensure that the borrowers are not having bad debt, for example. But Stan, you can amplify it if you want.
Oh, okay. If I get back to the user path journey, I would say there are different ways to come to Colend. So, but before that, when we began to create the protocol, what we figured out is that most of the protocols were decentralized exchange, which means that new users discovering BTC-Fi or even an EVM protocol on core network had to create an LP, a liquidity pair, which is not very easy for everyone.
Yeah.
And therefore, the initial plan was to create a single staking system. And after that, we saw that most of the people were looking for a way to borrow. So many of them, they were going to other chains and then going back to core network to make their stuff, which was a complete nonsense. So then we created the Colend protocol, a lending one. And about the user path, there is, I would say, two ways. The first one is to use the main bridge made by Core Network, which is a layer 0 mechanism. So it's cheap, fast, so it works pretty well. And then you have the other way you can then bring from, I would say, the Bitcoin layer, your BTC. So it's also a bridge. So there are different ways to get in. Everything is completely detailed in the documents. And then I think that everything has been built to be, I would say, user-friendly. Usually you go on the landing page, you see what you can deposit on it and your APY, how much you can expect after depositing instantly. And then you do your stuff progressively. So this is I think, the easiest way to begin, because creating a liquidity pair is not so easy. And for sure, most of the people don't want to sell that token because they want to take their profits. Sometimes they believe that their assets will have a better value, will increase in terms of value. So it's another way to not dump their token and to borrow what they require for on stablecoins or whatever, and create different strategies. And then maybe I talk too much. Sorry for that, Jedi.
No. This is really interesting because there's obviously this kind of like this whole process that's unfolding. So please just carry on. You're not talking too much at all. This is very interesting.
Okay, and then after that, if you begun to degen strategies, you can do different strategies. You can do some loops, you can short pump, you can even get more yield because you can, I would say, use your loan to deposit on another protocol, because currently there are a lot of airdrops programs on core networks. So this is the best momentum to do these kinds of new strategies, just because you are aware of what's happening on there. I think it's a win-win situation, and this is what we are doing now.
Great. I mean, for me, the big thing is, what is the kind of like the smart contract risk look like? Like, so if I've got my Bitcoin, I've got to essentially stake that, which means that Bitcoin leaves my wallet and then resides on a smart contract. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay, so how do you, and I think maybe this is definitely a question for you, Stan, is like from a marketing perspective, how do you actually like convince somebody who's been saving their Bitcoin for a tremendously long time to actually essentially give that Bitcoin to somebody else? Because essentially that goes against one of the rules of self-custody, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not. I think that is the hardest part, to convince a Bitcoiner to try something different that storing their asset or spending it in real life. So usually the best way to convince them is that thanks to the non-custodial staking from core network, they keep their Bitcoin. So this is the first step. And Toby can explain you in details what is the process, but you keep your Bitcoins on your Bitcoin layer in your wallet, and then because you sign a transaction with an EVM address, you will receive on it your core network. And this is the small step to discover the core ecosystem. And after that, because you have some core token, the gas token, to evolve in this ecosystem, you can then make the choice to swap it to go in a DeFi protocol, or you can even delegate it, or you can even deposit on Colend, and then create different strategies, because it just, I would say, simple. You just have one token, you have different choices, and this is what we do, and we explain to everyone. Go step by step, slowly. Don't risk anything. Discover it. Also, do your own research, but we are there to help them, to support them, because even for me 4 years ago, it was an adventure to discover the DeFi environment. It was very, very exciting, but sometimes, like everyone, I think we do bad choice because we become greedy, or maybe we forgot to secure our assets on a hardware wallet, for example. So this is the best way to evolve progressively and safely. So this is what we do now.
Toby, do you want to add anything to that, or?
No, I think it's well summarized by Stan. Of course, on top of it, all our protocol has been audited as well by Certic and Albron to ensure the security of the funds and the security of the contract that has been deployed. So on top of that as well, like currently all the, let's say, admin keys are held in a multi-sig wallet that is secured. And in the next few weeks, months, we're going to deploy our governance, which is going to provide most of the access to the community itself. So that's going to be the next stage of adding even additional security on Colend.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. And maybe I can add another detail.
Yes.
Every time that we list a new asset, we make sure that there is, when you manage a lending protocol, you have several rules to make sure that it doesn't disrupt the main market, because the reason why you will borrow assets is because you want to trade with it. And therefore, we have to make sure that the asset that we list are managed safely to not disrupt. When I say disrupt, is that you cannot short, you cannot long, or create an unbalancing situation on the market, on the AMM, like Glyph, Corex, and all the others on core network. So we manage that with a big attention. Most of the protocol delegated to experts for that, like Gauntlet, Stake Finance, or this kind of experts in this kind of strategies. Hopefully in your team, we have people with a strong experience in that, data analytics, for example. And so we handle that on our part. And this is why we go progressively. Every time we list a new asset, we verify that there is the liquidity, there is some safety on that, and to make sure that there is no, I would say, a fallback oracle, bad news, or this kind of stuff. It's very important for us that even the token listed and the supplier, therefore, gonna make sure to be able to withdraw their assets at the end. This is the main topic. The way that we build the protocol is that everything depends on the saving, the supply. In the current monetary policy system, everything is created through the debt, which is not, I think personally, the best situation, because your money is losing value every time. So for us, everything is built on the supply. The suppliers are rewarded. Also, we will provide some incentives for the borrowers, just to make sure that there is an activity on that. Because if you deposit your savings on an account, you expect something for that. And this is what we try to do now.
Yeah, it's exactly, I mean, it's essentially what you guys are doing is that you're taking an idea that has obviously existed within kind of like the Ethereum EVM, and you are bringing it into the most valuable crypto asset, and that's obviously Bitcoin. And I have to ask this question: what have been the challenges, not only from a technical level, which is obviously the primary part of the question, but from a secondary perspective, what have been the other challenges that you guys have experienced that maybe have surprised you, or kind of that stuff that you anticipated, whether it's from users or what the case might be?
Without going into tech details, I think personally, then Toby, you can add some comment. I think that the hardest part is to convince people to explore a new chain. Even if you have good reputation audits like Certic and Halborn, it's not quite enough. People have to understand where they are going. You have to make sure that you have the good partnerships, because it's a small world. Everyone chit chat between them, and if you are able to convince someone in DeFi with a strong experience, then it will bring the others. So the hardest part is to convince those people, the experienced one, and on the same time to convince the new one. So the people, for example, now we are doing a campaign with Satoshi app, and people, most of them from the question that we had on our Telegram group, they are discovering, in fact, the BTC-Fi, the DeFi, let's say that. And they are at the level where they have some token, some Bitcoin, but they don't know what to do with that. So we are helping them to do the hardest part, to discover something very new. And because for some of them, this is precious, it has a huge value for them, it's not so easy to do this effort. So it goes progressively. So I think personally the hardest part is to convince those people, and on the same time the experts one. But the experts one, they discover progressively, they create a relationship with us, and then they do the decision to begin and to talk with a friend. So we are at this step where the partnerships, the relationships becomes very strategic.
Yeah. The educational side of things is always going to be a big thing, regardless of even stuff that, like a simple perp stacks, for example, is still requires a huge amount of education. And I can imagine the challenges around your job, especially Stan, obviously to educate and to kind of get the message across is not an easy one. And I don't envy your job. I mean, even though we create even though we create content and we educate, it's kind of like there's not really pressure on us. It's what we do. And it's not like, okay, well, this project has to succeed and like this is what I'm doing. And I don't envy you. I mean, I think it's really difficult, and you are correct. I think one of the biggest challenges that I've experienced, even for myself, as someone who's very DeFi centric, I don't easily go and try new things, because it generally can be quite complicated. I mean, I must admit the core network and getting access to it is actually really straightforward and really easy. I mean, it's not a difficult thing. But some are, there's some chains that are just impossible to get on. But then, it's bizarre. Like those chains are the ones where, like projects on there just do really well. I mean, we saw it at the beginning of this bull run where like stuff like Kujira, and there were a couple of others that were almost impossible.
I got you, yes.
Yeah, like completely impossible to get to, but for some reason, price goes up, and I mean, I'm not really interested too much in kind of like the token side of things. I know that you guys haven't launched a token, and maybe we can just briefly chat about that. I mean, it's I always like protocols that don't dive straight into a token. They first find their market fit. I mean, what's happening with you guys from a token? Is there kind of like, is that part of your governance and decentralization process? What is the thinking around that?
Sure, maybe I can just go quickly about it. So definitely there's in the roadmap, there's a token as well that is going to be released in the future. One of the main utility is going to be the governance, as you mentioned before, which means that deciding the community is going to be able to decide which new asset should be listed under which condition. For example, what's the borrowing cap, the supply cap, if it's going to be an isolated pool or not. So that's going to be one of the main utility. The issuance is going to be divided in multiple parts. One of it will mainly be about the rewarding of the lenders and borrowers to add additional yield to the basic yield that they're already receiving on the protocol. Some others way to get the token, I will let Stan discuss about it because it's more about his. I don't want to like spoil anything without his green light.
Yeah. So therefore, yes, for sure. Everyone asks us when the token will be issued. So for us, the most important thing.
If I can just add,
yes.
make sure to follow our Telegram because we are going to announce it, of course. So don't feel that, because I know there's a lot of scammer out there that might airdrop you some Colend token already, or that might make you believe that you can already get it. But be aware of scammers. That's just what I wanted to add. Stan, you can continue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Yeah, since the beginning, we saw different people coming to the group or different chat, just telling, "Hey, did you know what's the contract address?" And then they drop it. For sure, no, there is no token now on Colend. We go progressively. So the lending protocol is deployed, and we are revamping the design because people ask us how to do this and this and that, and we try to fix it before going to the next step. The next step is to make sure that the governance will be live with the token. So it's linked, connected, and we have to make sure that everything will be seamless and simple for everyone. Even if I think that everyone, one thing that would be simple at the beginning, because to go on a governance, you go on different pages, and then you have to select different things. It's an exercise also, like a shareholder in the real life. You are not very comfy when you have these documents and you have to pick the decision for the company. So this is the same there, and then the idea is for sure to give some utilities to the token, like Toby said, but also initially Colend was and is also an NFT community, and we raised just one batch, and it's now sold out. And just for example, today we shared the documents about the utilities of the NFTs. So, for example, the NFT holders will get 1.8% of the token supply, therefore, which means that the NFT has a governance power. And also, we are negotiating now to provide another utility to the NFT, like a crypto debit card. For us, it would be huge because we really want that. We see that most of the protocols on other chains are doing deals with others, but this is the job of the end user. It has to use the protocol, then to forward and to transfer the assets to another protocol. So it's multi-steps. We try to do everything in one. So only the NFT holder will get that debit card if we succeed, but I think we will. And then I think I replied to your question. If I'm not sure.
No, you did absolutely. I don't know if Toby, if you want to add to that as well, or your thoughts. Happy to take them.
No, I think Stan already released enough information on it.
Cool. I mean, before we close it out, I mean, you guys have been really, really informative and great. Thank you. I wanted to just ask you in terms of the NFT itself. I mean, I think that's super interesting. I mean, considering that we also, did an NFT with utility. Obviously, you guys are doing the same thing. How does the NFT kind of like play out long term for you guys from a vision perspective? I mean, obviously, it started out as an NFT project, and now you're sitting with a whole new paradigm, but obviously there seems to be a plan around the NFT itself and kind of like a long-term vision. Do you want to share that with us before we close out?
Sure. The reason why we choose to launch an NFT collection was to not to do a fundraising, but to make sure that we will have an organic community. And we saw the big difference with other protocols. You can launch a protocol and then do the marketing activities. It's hard because you don't have a token, but the NFTs order are different. It's like I would say a club, a social club, and time to time they ask us, they want some news, like they are part of the family, and it makes the big difference. I worked on different projects before, and it's completely different. And therefore, because we recognize their action, their participation, it's normal for us to create new utilities. It's not so easy to manage an NFT collection. I think it's not so easy to make sure that people are aware about the utilities, how to use it. Some people are just trading it, but most of them, they don't know the benefits to hold the NFT. And this is what we are trying to do. So this is why we are revealing progressively, because we don't want to sell dreams. We want to make things feasible. And so to reward them with the governance token, for us, it makes sense. To imply them in specific key decision of the protocol also. So for us, it's not so hard. It's just to pick a specific asset on the snapshot, and then they vote. So they have a very specific power on the governance. And then there are the others, like we said just before, the crypto debit card. So we are going step by step, and the particularity from Colend is that we recognize every participant, every contributor. So this is super important for us.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. I like it. Yeah, I mean, I like, by the way, just for the listeners, like something that's quite unique that Colend have done is that they have this manifesto on their website, which is pretty cool because essentially it's like taking, I would imagine it's like a guiding principles with which, they want to go about their business. It's actually worth checking out. It's about all the good things and wholesome things within the context of, what I would like to imagine is the correct way of doing business on the blockchain, from decentralization to trustless, permissionless, and obviously accountability to uphold those values. And I think it was a really cool touch on your part. I can see where maybe the kind of like the NFT side of things comes into the equation. Maybe a little bit of a romantic perspective, but I like it regardless of what people might say. Good manifesto, and it's great that you guys put it out there. So yeah, thanks for your time, gents. I really do appreciate. I know that you're busy, and it was a bit of a short notice, but I really appreciate the time that you've taken out to come and chat to us. And I think the most important thing is to wish you guys all the best of luck, and also to congratulate you on kind of like going out on the periphery and pushing the envelope. I think in many ways this is what you guys are doing. Going into a new paradigm and changing things up. So yeah, good luck with that. And once again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jedi. It was a great pleasure. I felt personally very comfy. It was a great pleasure, and to talk to someone who know the tech side and also all the DeFi education. It's unique, and I appreciate very, very, very much.
Yeah, it was a great time, really. And looking forward to come back maybe in a few weeks or months and discuss update on Colend and update on Core Network itself as well. Maybe it could be great to do one like this with other protocols as well all together.
That's actually a really good idea, and maybe we'll actually let's do that. Let's plan something. Yeah, I mean, I think.
Are you doing Twitter Spaces as well?
Yeah, so we tend to do Twitter Spaces, but we find that this kind of thing is more effective in terms of retaining like repeat listens. Like Spaces are great if you can get like a big audience, but generally it's quite hard to do that. But we're open to whatever. I mean, if you guys can get together a bunch of protocols that would like to do a round table around whatever issues, I'm happy to host that and be a part of it anytime. It's what I enjoy doing. So let's see if we can make a date and make it happen. It'll be great.
Great. Looking forward for it.
Cool. Thanks everyone for listening in. Please like and subscribe. Always appreciated. And yeah, take it easy. And we see you on the next episode of Blockmates Orange. Bye.
All right. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please give us a like, subscribe, and turn the notification bell on for next time. See ya.